Welcome to the Pastor Chira Show. I'm Pastor Chira, and today we launch. We launch into new territory. We launch into new mindset. We launch into new relationship. Are you ready to launch out? Come on and launch out with me in this candid conversation that we're about to have today. And today we're looking at something that has been on our minds and on our hearts for a little bit of time now. And it's talking about ministry outside of the walls of our buildings and what that looks like, how we do that, why it's important, and why we need to do that today. And today, I have someone that's joining us in this conversation because this is her segment week of us talking candidly about different things regarding ministry. And that guest today is none other than Elder Crystal Knight. Yes! Hi, Elder.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing awesome.
Glad
to be here.
As always. You're always doing awesome because you are awesome. You're awesome in the work that you do. You're awesome in just being who you are. You are just awesome. I know you're awesome.
Thank you.
Some of the viewing audience know that you're awesome, but can you just tell the rest of the viewing audience about you and your awesomeness? Yes.
Well, hello, everyone. Greetings to everybody out there. Glad to be here. And my name is Crystal Knight, and I'm also the CEO and founder of Sadaka House. And that's a nonprofit organization that helps others and to extend to them any needed resources just to help them in the midst of what they may be dealing with and so forth. So just glad to be here again.
Glad to have you again. Sadaka House. Sadaka is doing so much these days. And for those who don't know, Sadaka means house of charity, right?
Yes.
Yes, house of charity. And that's what we do. That's what you do. That's why you built it. That's what it's built upon. It's built upon charity. And charity is what? Charity's love. Right?
It's love, yeah.
It's built upon love. Because that's what Christ is. That's who Christ is. He's all about love. And so it's a good thing that we are sitting in and talking about the house of charity today and what that means. And where did this come from for those that don't know? Where did this come from for you?
Okay. So for those that don't know me, I'm a servant at heart. So when I say that, it means I just love helping others. And I'm always looking for ways to extend myself, which is by nature, second nature for me, just to kind of lend a helping hand, whether it be of my time, whether it be of my resource, a skill just to help somebody else. And so I think a lot of it has contributed to my upbringing and from being under my former pastor, then the late Reverend Pastor Benjamin Smith. And the ministry that he led was definitely an outreach ministry. It was all about evangelism and going out there to help others. And so Sadaka House was birthed back in 2014. It was a shared build. And I say that because there was someone else who came up with the name. The concept of me wanting to do like a soup kitchen for the homeless and all. And so we kind of tied the two together. And we didn't quote unquote start the nonprofit then, but we were still doing the work. So we've been connecting and partnering with nonprofits, other faith-based organizations to help them do what they do in terms of helping those that are out, whether it be the homeless ministry, those that just didn't have what they needed just to provide food and stuff at their homes, toys for the holidays for their children. So wherever the need was, we would just try to join our efforts with that organization or church to help them to meet those needs. And that's where it literally came from.
And so, and that's, it's amazing that you started by partnering with others that were
Mhm.
already doing it and having the heart to want to help and to be an impact on the community.
Mhm.
Would you say that it's more important to establish the work before doing the work, or do the work and then establish the work? Does that make sense?
Hmm. Let's see if I'm following you.
Come on, come
um,
on.
so when you say doing the work, ideally, I probably started doing the work before I established "quote unquote" Sadaka House, the
Right.
nonprofit.
That's exactly
Um,
what I mean. Right.
so it's definitely a part of me because that's just what I was. That's just what I do.
Right.
So even though there was no Sadaka House, um,
There
Crystal was
was.
still out there joining forces with others to feed almost 300 homeless folk on or individuals on a monthly basis. We would supply the breakfast, the food, everything to feed them. In conjunction with that, we would have others to join with us. So we had volunteers that will also help to prepare and cook. But then not
Hmm.
only that, we were also there to meet the needs of them spiritually. So we were minister in song. So I sing. So that's what I did.
Right.
Share scripture and all that. So we were meeting both the spiritual and the natural needs.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say for me, you can have an organization, but if the organization is not from here, your heart, if it's not from your passion,
Yes.
or your drive in terms of what motivates you to do what you do, it really means nothing. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and similar to you wearing a title, you are who you are because it's you, it's who you
Right.
are, it's what you do. And the title just comes and it connects itself to you so that others can say, oh, wow, she's been doing it, but now look what has come out of it. So Sadaka House was literally birthed. And the House of Charity, like you said, meaning love. It's an
Hmm.
extension of the love that God has given us. And He has shown His love by giving us skills, resources, time, money, you name it. And He trusts us to be able to extend that and give to others the same way He gave to us.
And he does, but
Hmm.
not all of us do that.
No, no, no.
Not all
We
of us
yeah, you got
do
some
that.
folk that are pretty selfish or their
Hmm.
motives for doing what they do. I will say this, not everybody is cut out to do what we would say, if it's from a church perspective, outreach or going
Hmm.
out there in the hedges and the highways, as the scripture
Right.
would say. We know that the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few.
Exactly.
Um, not
Yes.
everybody wants to move from the pulpit to go out there and win the souls. So you
Yes.
have your refurbished saints, you have those recycled, they
Yes.
go from church to church, and those are your members. But I believe ministry was not just for us to recycle the saints that are already within the body, but it's all about going out there, you know what I mean, and winning
It's
those
all
souls
about.
because those are the ones that need to know Christ,
Right.
and what He can do. So, and I
It
believe
is.
that's really what it means when you're looking to do ministry outside the quote unquote four walls.
Hmm. And it does. And we have a scripture that kind of goes with
Hmm.
what we're talking about today in this. And it's found in Luke chapter 10. And I'm going to start at verse 30. And it's really talking about the Good Samaritan, right?
Hmm.
And it says, starting at verse 30, and Jesus answering said, a citizen man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who snipped him
Hmm.
of his remnant, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. So they beat him up and they left him there,
Yep.
right? And by chance, there came down a certain priest that way. And when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Verse 32. And likewise, a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him and passed by on the other side.
Mhm.
And then verse 33. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he
Mhm.
had compassion on him.
Mhm.
And that's Luke chapter 10, verse 30 through 33. And it kind of goes into what we're kind of talking about coming
Mhm.
outside of the four walls and
Right.
seeing things happen with people,
Mhm.
and seeing that they are in need, seeing that, they have been hurt, they have
Mhm.
been damaged, that there
Mhm.
is something that they need. And we don't stop and take the
Mhm.
time to meet the need of the people, but we're stepping over them. We're stepping around them. We're overlooking them. And
Mhm.
I want to go to a commercial break real quick. We're going to go to a commercial. And on the other side, I want us to look at this scripture and talk about a little bit about
Mhm.
being that good Samaritan, or
Mhm.
being that priest, or being that Levite,
Right.
and what that really means to us inside the walls and outside the walls. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be right back after this. Do you have a service or a business that helps others? Do you have an uplifting, inspiring, and encouraging conference or service coming up? It's time to get the word out. Advertise on The Pastor Chira Show. Go to thepastorchirashow.com and click on advertising opportunities to learn more. Let's let the world know about you. We are back, and we are back with Elder Crystal Knight talking about being a good Samaritan. And before we went to the commercial, we were talking about Luke chapter 10, verse 30 through 33, and how this man had gotten beaten up, had gotten bruised, had gotten robbed, and he was laying on the side of the street. And a priest walked by, a Levite walked by, and they didn't help him. What do you say about the scripture? What does this scripture say to you?
I think it speaks to what we see happening every day.
Mm,
Um, And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in the church to see it, because it's happening just with everyday folk, violence everywhere, folk that are dealing with mental illness, folk that are depressed, folk that are finding themselves in a desolate place, those that have been wounded, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally. And a lot of times those folk get overlooked, or there's no one there to lend a hand or to lend an ear. And just listen or just come to their aid or their rescue. But then you do have um, a remnant, a group of those who all that are about helping others. And I think I had mentioned earlier that not everybody is cut out for that type of work. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
but at the same time, we should also be sensitive enough to the needs of those that are around us, especially if they live within our four walls, if they're in our church, at work, and so forth. You know what I mean? Because we're around those folk literally every day for the most part, or every week.
Mm-hmm.
And the scripture clearly lets us know that, you know, you can have a title, you can be this or this, but it took one person that was compassionate enough
Right.
to just put aside his busyness, what he had to do that day, to
Mm-hmm.
find out, oh my God, this is somebody that needs help.
Right.
because if not, that person would have been left for dead.
Dead.
So it speaks to what we deal with and what we see all the time.
Whether it's somebody that we know or whether it's somebody that we don't know. Because
Yep.
there are those that are among us that have been beaten, that have been bruised. I'm about to cry.
Hmm.
That are just going through, and we don't take the time to invest into them. We don't take the time to find out, to really find out what's going on, not
Yeah.
on the surface, but to really find out. And
What's
then
going on?
when we go outside of our walls and outside of just who we know in our general, and seeing people out on the street, seeing, knowing
Mhm.
that they're out there and they don't have, and that they're in need. And if we're doing it to those that we know, we're definitely going to do it to those that we don't know. We're just going to
Yeah.
walk by. We're just going to,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
that's not who we're called to be. And I understand that you said that everyone's not cut out for this,
Hmm.
but isn't that part of what we're cut out for? Aren't we
I think
cut
we,
out
yeah,
for this work?
for this type of work. I think
Yes.
when you, and I'm sorry for cutting you off. I think
No.
oftentimes that um just like everyone is not cut out to be a nurse, to be a teacher, to be a pastor, to be a greeter, to be a server. And I think when we understand the capacity and the work that each person has been called, everyone plays a role um, into that. Not everyone may help to, hey, Chris, I can order the food and get you the clothes, but I'm not the one to go out there in the streets to do X, Y, Z. Or maybe I'd rather come out and serve the people, but I don't have the means to be able to get the food or the donations or give you money. So everybody kind of helps in different kinds of ways, but it's the ones that I believe that know what to do and don't do it. That's something different. You know what I mean?
Mm.
The ones that are all about, the prestige and or they want the platform. They want to be known for being able to help the people, but they're not willing to get their hands dirty. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I think there's so many different ways to look at it. And then I have to come to grips with understanding that not everybody has a heart for people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Not everybody has a passion to do the types of work that I would say that Christ did.
Hmm.
He was among the people. He
All
didn't
the
stay
time.
among his, prestigious spiritual folk all the time. He literally was in the trenches and that's where he stayed,
Hmm.
So, and even that, it's not all about that, but most people, I think a lot of times also that people, they want to give of their resources and time or their money. But a lot of people are stingy with that. You know what I mean? Honestly, when you
Yeah.
really look at it,
Right.
why should I give? This is what I worked hard. Why should I give what I've earned? They could, if they want it, they need to get up and do it themselves. But not everybody is in that place. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
So, and I think when you see what the Good Samaritan did, he gave him himself.
Hmm.
He gave up his resources. And the thing of it is, the payback was even greater because it was told to him, whatever you give, I'm going to give you something to help out. And if you give more than what I've given to you, I'll pay you back. So as soon as I
Right.
come back, I'm going to
Right.
give it right back to you. And I
Right.
believe when you give of yourself, your time, your energy, your resources, and everything, it has a way of coming back. And you be surprised how blessed you are when you do that.
And
When
you
you really,
would. You really will be surprised at what does come back. But I want to ask you about the fear factor, though.
mm-hmm,
Because what about those that potentially have the heart and
mm-hmm,
potentially have the mind, right?
mm-hmm,
But the fear of it, the unknown of what's going to happen if I do apply myself, the unknown of, well, if I help this person, are they going to turn around and take advantage of me? Or
mm-hmm.
as I go out there, am I going to be robbed? Am I going to be taken advantage
Mhm,
of? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like the fear
mhm,
factor of, you know, making ourselves vulnerable, Like we're
Mhm.
really making ourselves vulnerable. And yes, I have a heart to do this. Yes, I
Mhm.
have a heart. I have a mind. I have the passion, but I also have fear.
Mhm.
I have fear of what's going to happen
Happen.
when
Yeah.
I go out there
Mhm.
and make myself available and vulnerable to someone who's vulnerable. I'm
Yeah.
making myself vulnerable to
Mhm.
someone who's vulnerable. How does that work?
Mhm. But you know what, Pastor? I think there's no more, let me use this. It's no different than you extending yourself to people that you know. You're vulnerable to them, even the ones you do know. You put yourself at risk when you trust yourself, your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, everything about you into the hands of somebody else. They could hurt you at any given day. They
Yep.
could take from you at any given time. And
Mm-hmm.
half of the folk, when we do give to them, what do they? Most of them don't even give back. They don't pay
Right.
us back.
Right.
But then you have a unfortunate person that's sitting here that you have no clue, you don't know them, and you probably will never see them again.
Right.
And here they're in need. And I believe that's where we go back to the house of charity. It's about love. It's about showing compassion. It's about giving to others something they don't have that they need right then and now. And
Right.
we have it in our capacity to be able to do it. And sometimes when you look at the need, it overrides whatever fears that you do have, because at the end of the day, and we'll get spiritual and deep, if God is commissioning you to do the work, then He's got you covered. He's got you back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I may have a light bill, mortgage, or whatever that's due, but the fact that you're extending yourself and you're doing what He's called you to do, He's going to make sure that your needs met. The Scripture says, "I never seen the righteous forsaken, nor a seed begging bread."
Bread.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? And if He's leading and guiding you to do a work, He's going to provide you for the work that He's called you to do.
Right.
So, with that in mind, I think if we learn to put aside those fears, you take risk every time you step out those doors to do whatever it is you do, to go to work. You take
Yes.
risks to go into relationships. You take risk to extend yourself and give money, your last, to somebody else who may not pay you back. You're
Yep.
hoping that they would, but they may not. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
um, I think when you look at it, you just can't box those fears just with dealing with the unknown or people that you don't know about, knowing that there's a need. And here you put yourself out there to a group of people that you know all the day, relatives, friends, church folk, you name it.
Right.
So I think one is no different than the other. And that's
You
just
think they're the
my,
same. You think they're the
yeah,
same. You
I
see
think
them
they're the
as the
same.
same.
Absolutely.
Because no matter what the situation, no matter what the circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
making yourself available is making yourself available. Opening yourself up is opening yourself up. Loving is
Mm-hmm.
loving, caring is caring, giving is
Mm-hmm.
giving, right? Being there is being there. And I think, to your point, I agree with you. If we just allow ourselves to be who God has called us to be, and to
Mm-hmm.
love the way that He has called us to love, and to
Mm-hmm.
give the way that He's called us to give, and to
Yeah.
share of ourselves, and to share the way that He has called us to share. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that we're just giving out, but we're
Mm-hmm.
also going to receive from
Mm-hmm.
those things that we do.
Yeah.
It's reciprocal.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to say this because, and I don't fault the folk again that everyone that's a leader may not be a server.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone that's a server may be an exhorter. So they may not be a server, but they may be an exhorter. And I think if everyone understands and knows what gifts that are operating within themselves, what drives you to do what you do, and when we respect those individuals for what they bring, when you bring them all together, ultimately everybody is meeting the need. You know what I
The
mean? The
entire
person
need.
that gave the innkeeper the money to take care of the person, apparently he didn't have the resource at the time to do that. So what he did, he gave money to help that
Mm-hmm.
innkeeper to help care for that person.
Right.
So they both joined forces to work together. Yes, the Levite could have did it, but we don't know what was on the mind of that Levite. We don't know
Right.
what was on the mind of that priest. I could
Mm-hmm.
easily sit here and judge. I'm like, really, you couldn't help?
Right.
you saw the hotel over there or the motel, whatever it is, you couldn't do anything, you know,
Right.
there's a whole time. But again, it speaks to a lot of people, and you do have people that are selfish.
Yes.
Look, I ain't got time for that.
Yes.
And it's just who
Okay.
they are. But I
Right.
always believe that God has somebody to always come to the rescue of somebody else in need.
Always. There is always a ram in the bush. There's always somebody who's going to come and who's going to be there that's going to be able to meet the need in the way that it needs to be met. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
it's going to continue to meet the need in the way that it needs to be met. I
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for sitting and having this conversation about, you know, really ministering outside of the walls, because what the Good Samaritan did was that he went outside of the walls and saw a need outside and made sure that that was met, so that inside they could get what they needed in other ways. I thank you so much.
Welcome.
This is worth digging into
Yeah.
and looking at, and for us to continue to study.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
we're almost out of time. Can you just tell the viewing audience how they can be in touch with you and get more information about Sadaka House?
Yeah, so you can always reach us via our website at sadakahouse.startsites.org or sadakahousinc@gmail.com. We'll be glad to hear from you.
Listen, there are those that I've been talking to and about Sadaka and what you're doing and your outreach and the feeding of the homeless and everything that you're doing and that you're providing, and your tenacity and your consistency and your persistence to go out and meet the needs of the people. It doesn't matter what the weather is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You make sure that you get out there, and they look for you. They look for you
Mhm.
now. And I want to thank you so much for being that good Samaritan and taking other good Samaritans with you to help
Mhm.
the ones that are out there that have a need. Thank
Mhm.
you so
You're
much.
welcome. You're
And we
welcome.
will see you on our next segment next month. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope and I pray that this has helped you to see that no matter what, no matter what's going on, you have something that you can give, because there's someone that needs you and that needs what you have. Be that good Samaritan, because it will come back to you. I'm Pastor Chira. This is the Pastor Chira Show, and I will see you next week. God bless. Coming up on the Pastor Chira Show, we are back, and we are back with Minister Troy Crafton, and we are talking about Lent. And we